Hello YouTube, Fussman here today, formerly HBZ, and today we're going to do our first proper product review. I've not done one of these properly before. I've looked at a few products and given a bit of insight here and there. There was a cell phone review and that, but I think this is something that's useful for the community and that people can use, so that's why I don't mind going in depth on this sort of topic and doing something that's outside of my comfort zone. I hope today to provide you with tons of examples and information so that you can make up your own decision and make an informed decision about what you buy and where you buy it from, etc. So we're going to be covering today HDMI capture, and this is one of the HDMI captures from China. I've actually ended up, long story, but I ended up with two of these. This is the black one, and this is what they look like. You just literally have at the back little HDMI in, HDMI out. There's going to be an unboxing a bit later that I'll splice in, and hopefully I can get the white balance, the color balance, proper. I've never done this sort of in-depth thing before, so I hope that I can get all my ducks in a row and provide you guys with some good examples and things like that, that you can actually use. So first of all, how did I come about this? So I always had one of those Elgato Live Gamer capture cards, and it served me well over the years. It did 1080p 30, and it worked with just about everything you threw at it. It had some caveats. For instance, it did not support anything that had HDCP encryption. Also, anything that's slightly out of the HDMI spec, it didn't work, but it did support VGA capture, which is what I used to do like my first VGA captures a long time ago. And that was good. I upgraded to AMD Ryzen 3700, slapped the card in, and that system was just completely unstable. If I tried to capture anything, it'll capture 20-30 minutes, and the capture card would freeze. I did some digging, and on all of the older Elgato, well, it wasn't Elgato, it was Avermedia. All the older Avermedia products, if you have a look at the Reddit page, every single person running it on an AMD-based system had issues. Whether it's the USB capture devices, the PCI Express capture devices, all of them just don't work well with AMD. And one thing I know for sure is that that's one of the reasons I didn't want to go back with Avermedia. A lot of their products, they eventually changed it so the compatibility just said Intel, which I find kind of hilarious. The new products, of course, work. The new products, they support the added firmware patches, whatever, so they work fine. So you're probably wondering why this looks a little bit different, because I've got two of these now. I thought I'm going to do some experimentation and I'm going to test a few things out. So what I've got there is I've got my Canon camera plugged in. I've got a micro HDMI cable going into it. Sorry, it's mini HDMI, it's not quite micro. And I've got it connected to the capture cards, one of the capture cards, the actual one that I unboxed. And I have to say, this is running extremely good. The only thing that I had to change is going in there, decrease the saturation a tiny little bit, just so that I've got some color on my skin. If I don't do that, then I'm like super white, which isn't a fault of the capture card. That's what it looks like on the camera. I'm looking at the camera right now. Because I don't use studio lights, I can't afford them. I have to use these daylight bulbs, and these daylight bulbs, they're way too harsh for this application. But nonetheless, setting it up, it works. That's why I look the way I do. I just want to show you guys now. You're probably thinking, oh, why don't you go for Avermedia? Or Corsair Elgato. And really, I can't. I did some googling and some price checking and things like that to find out how much these things cost. So let's actually go on to the second screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this camera on here, the webcam. That's what my webcam looks like. We'll get into detail with that a little bit later. So here we actually have the page for that. So the first device that most people would think of is the Elgato HD60S. That's what it looks like. It has a few caveats that this doesn't have. For instance, here inputs, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch. You can do cameras as well, even though it doesn't say it. It's just literally any HDMI input up to 4K. It will downscale it. I think, I could be wrong, as far as I'm aware it does that. But you'll see unencrypted HDMI. So anything with HDCP, if it's like a PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 also had that. The PS Vita TV that I've got here somewhere also has that. All of those things, your SOL, you have to buy like HDMI splitter, add more latency, use the HDMI splitter to circumvent the actual HDCP, which I'm glad to report this device doesn't have an issue with. All you have to do with this device is make sure you've got a normal everyday you see video out that's there. Okay, so you have to have a normal everyday HDMI based screen, and it acts like a middleman. It captures the signal. HDCP doesn't affect it at all. It just literally it works. So it's one of those things where you don't have to worry about it. Right, so if you can get this, it's from a reputable source, a well-known place. You know it's not going to cause you any problems, but then you get to this. 4,000 Rand. I don't have 4,000 Rand. I don't even have anywhere close to that. So let's see if there's any other Elgato Pro products that they've got there. By the way, this is EveTech. Do not buy from EveTech. Watch my videos on why. But it is one of the sites that doesn't remove the listing when they're sold out. So the other thing that you can get is a cam link. It's about 500 Rand cheaper at the moment. Okay, if you're in America, you're very lucky. You can get these for $199. You know, that would be amazing. So here's the S Plus, and I really don't know what the difference is between those. PCI based solutions, PCI Express based solutions go up even more. But this does 4K 60. I don't know if it natively captures that or if it downscales it. You can get like top of the range, 4,999. By the way, guys, if some of you want to send me some key lights, I wouldn't mind. But don't send me the Elgato ones. Send me like studio ones, because for that price you can get a full set of studio lights. Sorry, e-begging. Nonetheless, well, Elgato from Corsair, that's straight up out. It's so far out of my price range, I just don't have the money for it. Let's take a look at Avermedia. Now you can get like the Avermedia GL310. That's quite old by now. I think these were like 2012, 2013. So the same vintage as my game capture. I think it was live stream or whatever card that I had from them before. And checking the forums, these suffer from the same problem if you're running AMD. So that's completely out, but it's 1,899 Rand for one of those. It also only does, let's see here, 1080p. It doesn't say. Regardless, it does 1080p. 50, here we go, for desktop. 1080p 50. You can't go faster than that. So it's only 30 frames per second. So it's not the best solution. Moving along, live gamer portable. You know, 5,000 Rand again. Might as well get Elgato. And 2699, but this one doesn't have HDMI or USB out for capturing. It just sort of records onto SD card, which defeats the purpose. And yeah, there's not much out here in South Africa that you can buy, that you can actually get. I'm going to open up quickly. Let's check what you can get from AliExpress. Okay, from Ali, you get these ones, which I'm going to do a review of these later. We don't really mind them, but here we go. That's $40. Okay, I've seen these go as low as 35, but I won't suggest getting from Ali for several reasons, and that's how I end up with two. Is for starters, if you buy from me at the moment, they said they shipped from USA, so I had it shipped from USA to Aramex Global back to me. And initially I thought that's a great thing because China was closed due to COVID. And I just never received it, and I waited months and months. Eventually they refunded me, and then I received it like several weeks later, and then I had to contact the seller and pay them. So instead, what I recommend you do is go to Banggood, 53. It's a little bit more expensive, but if you choose the direct mail, they use Buffalo services. That means that you will get this at your doorstep in 2 weeks. That's what it took me. And this is where the black one came from. Well, the blue one came from. The black one was from AliExpress. But let's have a look at and see what we've got here. 4K HDMI to USB 3.0. That's not true. I'm not going to sugarcoat this at all. Okay, what it does is it does 1080p max, and it does it at 60 frames a second. Okay, so here's your resolutions. So you can see some oddball ones here, and I haven't tested these yet because finding a VGA to HDMI converter that can actually go that low, I couldn't. So I won't recommend getting any of those. But you basically get the system in the box. And a friend of mine recommended this for the main reason that this card, it just works. It doesn't care what you do to it. It just works. He uses it with his Mister, and the Mister outputs not 60 frames per second. It outputs oddball frames per second, 59 point something other if it's NTSC, 24 point something other if it's PAL, and because that's what the original console supported, and this just goes on that. So it doesn't care about that. HDCP doesn't care. As long as you've got HDMI device connected to output, it captures it. It just doesn't care. When you plug this into your system, it actually detects as a webcam, and frankly, it just works. It doesn't give me any hassles whatsoever. Sorry, it detects it as a HD. I'm thinking about the other one does it as a webcam. It detects it as a HD capture device. No drivers, no nothing, and you just plug it in and it works. Now, to give you guys some examples, let's do the examples a little bit later. There's one more thing I want to just cover on this, and for this, what I'll do is I'll drag this through here. There is one negative. It passes 1080p to your computer no matter what. It doesn't care what you're doing. It just gives you a 1080p to your computer. It does a 1080p 60. I tested for that. But if you actually go down here, resolution, you'll see that's completely grayed out. Okay. You can do like color space. It does support 709 and 601. I'm not exactly sure what my camera outputs, so I just left the default. Color range, partial. You generally want partial on all of your cameras and that sort of stuff, unless you've got like a really high-end mirrorless camera connected to your system. By the way, guys, if you want to donate one of those, you get better video feed. But nonetheless, I'm running literally the cheapest Canon video camera you could find. They still make these. They're very, very popular, and for good reason. They work. They don't give you hassles. But you can go here, and then you can do like partial or full. Okay, so it supports that. Buffering, I think that's internal. I don't know, I just leave it all to detect. And audio mode, that does actually capture audio from my camera. So to prove this, I'm just going to click done here. Let me mute this microphone. Unmute HDMI, and this is what it sounds like directly from my camera, including all the noise, because there's absolutely no filters on this. It just generally, for me, it works. So let's get some comparisons started, shall we? Okay, so the first thing I want to do is just remind you guys what my video quality used to look like. Oh, by the way, with this video camera, I had to set the ISO extremely low. That means the shutter is extremely low. That's why there's some ghosting and things if I have fast motion. Not the end of the world. It doesn't affect me at all. Okay. But let's just go here and do full screen camera. There we go. That's what it used to look like. This is a 720p webcam. You'll notice exposure is very, very low on this one as well. Suffers from the same problem. Colors aren't as accurate. There's a lot of grain. I know you won't see the grain because YouTube encoding actually has like a grain filter to decrease grain. Makes sense. They want lower bit rates. But as you can see, that's what it looks like. You know, it's not great at all. Let's go and just do this. This is what the new one looks like. Yeah, I don't have the best camera in the world, and we are going to be rectifying that shortly. I bought one of these action cameras on buy for the cheap, but that's for the next video. That's for this video. These two things are going to combine together. Okay, so let's go here. And let's go, I've got a side by side. Now you guys can really see how the colors get messed up. On that camera there, okay, that's the real room color, that's correct. On this one, that's incorrect. I can actually go and try and get it so it's a bit more similar, but then I have to set the white balance off. Okay, so let's take the white balance and let's see if we can find that color. Yeah, here's that color. But now you see, this is what my face looks like at the moment. You know, color on a webcam isn't as important as it is on a video camera. So you can see the difference on there. And that's another positive, you know, for getting one of these, sticking a video camera into it and having better picture quality. Look, in the perfect, absolutely perfect, ideal world, I would run this with a mirrorless camera. It'll look amazing with a mirrorless camera, with a good lens. I don't have that. They're expensive. I've got a Samsung P1000 or something like that, mirrorless. It's 5 years old. It doesn't have clean HDMI. In fact, you plug the HDMI in, it just goes into preview mode. It's useless. So that gives you a rough approximation of why these things are important. But let's have a look at the consoles. Now for the consoles, I'm just going to show you little snippets, and I'm not going to do any audio unless it's necessary. But let's have a look at that. And it's probably not going to be consoles. Sorry, I don't know, I just mentioned console because I don't have any consoles that I can do 60 frames per second on. The Xbox One does. It has like 5 or 6 games that does it. None of those games is something I've got. The PS3 does it. None of the games there is something I've got. And once again, it's only like 20 titles, and it's all stuff that doesn't really show off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch this over and have it capture from my computer. I'm going to capture it to my laptop, which doesn't have a fast encoding. It's fairly slow. I want to see if this can actually do it, what that looks like, etc. If that fails, I'll just capture it from the desktop itself somehow. I don't know, I'll make a plan there, but that'll give you guys a rough idea of what it looks like, how everything goes. So let's switch over to that. Okay, let's do our first game capture, shall we? I had to use the same computer, and unfortunately, because my computer monitor doesn't have speakers, if I use HDMI pass-through, I can't pass through the audio, because remember, it piggybacks on the HDMI display that you've got connected to it. But what I will do is I will add some samples from game consoles a little bit later that does capture audio from the capture card itself. I chose Half-Life 2 mainly because it's not a very demanding game on my computer itself. Remember, we're not testing the computer, we're actually testing of the capture card. It's also a game that a lot of you are familiar with and you've played a million times, so if there's a problem, you'll be able to see it. It's worth mentioning that I removed any filters that I had applied previously, so there's absolutely no filters at the moment. I'm going to wait a little while on the main screen just so that we can have a good comparison, because I'm going to use OBS's internal capture as well, and that will give us like a baseline of which one is the best.
Rise and shine, Mr. Freeman. Rise and shine. Not that I wish to imply you have been sleeping on the job. No one is more deserving of a rest, and all the effort in the world would have gone to waste until... well, let's just say your hour has come again. The right man in the wrong place can make all the difference in the world. So wake up, Mr. Freeman. Wake up and smell the ashes.
I didn't see you get on. Well, end of the line.
Welcome. Welcome to City 17. You have chosen, or been chosen, to relocate to one of our finest remaining urban
It's all
centers.
I have left.
I thought so much of City
All right, I'm moving.
17 that I elected to
Were you
establish
the only ones on that
my
train?
administration here in the citadel so thoughtfully provided by our benefactors. I've been proud to call City 17 my home. And so, whether you are here to stay or passing through on your way to parts unknown, welcome to City 17. It's safer here.
This must be a mistake. I got a standard relocation coupon just like everybody else.
Recalibrate socio-staff. We are receiving data.
I'm gonna need me some privacy for this.
About that beer I owed you. It's me, Gordon, Barney from Black Mesa. Hey, sorry for the scare. I had to put on a show for the cameras. I've been working undercover with civil protection. I can't take too long or they'll get suspicious. I'm way behind on my beating quota.
Yes, Barney, what is it? I'm in the middle of a critical test.
Sorry, Doc, but look who's here.
Great Scott! Gordon Freeman! I expected more warning.
Yeah, you and me both, Doc. He was about to board the express to Nova Prospect.
Well, Barney, what do you intend?
I'm thinking.
Alex is around here, somewhere. She would have a better idea how to get him here.
Well, as long as he stays away from checkpoints, we should be okay. Listen, I gotta go, Doc.
Okay, I just want to test the latency, so let's just take something that's a little bit later on in the game. Right, yeah, some action.
Stop! We didn't do anything! I'll be looking for you now. You better run. There's nothing we can do here. Unit down at station. Block 8 move. Response to Block pilot on Attention. Unidentified person of interest. Turn your signal service with local protection immediately.
And there's no, there's absolutely no perceivable latency.
Unidentified person of interest. Turn your signal service with local protection. Attention protection. Status station program
Please. Okay, let's try something a little bit different. Now, I know this does not output at 1080p. I just want to see what the capture card does. Okay, so you can see 640 by 480. This is Jazz Jackrabbit 2. It's a bit of a retro game. Okay, and let's see if we can go to full screen. I think it was Alt-Enter. It's a very good test because it scrolls the entire screen extremely fast. So if there's any jittery or anything, you'll notice. Now it is jittery on my screen, which normally it isn't. And I think this is the limitation of the HDMI pass-through. We're exceeding the amount of bandwidth this can actually handle. Right, so let's do another test at low resolution and see what the device does. Oh, I can't see the screen at the moment due to Steam library being placed in its place, but let's see what this looks like when it's done. Oh, I have not rebound the keys in this. But in this instance, I'm not getting that render problem where it's struggling with the vertical on the HDMI switch. This looks good. So it could be, remember this runs at 320 by 240, so it's even lower. It's not 640 by 480. So this is a very, very good test to see how bad that is. I forgot just how bad the default key map is. Screen resolution has changed again. Okay, this is the Super Nintendo Mini, and what I did is I literally just unplugged the screen and then plugged this in, and I think this is actually due to the card needing a reset. So I thought it's worth documenting, even though I think this is more user error than the actual device itself. This is device related. It looks like it's trying to render 720p on there, but it's failing. So let's go into display settings and just see if there's anything we can do to change it. Oh, there, it fixes itself. So let's go to Pixel Perfect. And it appears that it's only in the main screen and it's like on the device itself. So if I plug this into a screen, I can guarantee you that bottom side does not do this. So there is a little bit of a fault here. I do not know if this is the NES Mini's fault or if it's the system's fault. There's a quick way to check. So I'm quickly going to grab my PlayStation Classic and see what that does. That also outputs 720p. Yeah, and we get an error as soon as I turn off the Super Nintendo Mini. Clearly something funky is going on there. PlayStation Classic. It's turning on now. And it seems like we do not have that issue anymore. So it could be that the NES Mini runs a little bit out of spec. If I had to guess, that's what's going on here. But we will persevere because this is more for audio. So let's see what happens when you start the game. Does this actually include the game itself? Okay, so let's take something here that we all know that it's not going to give me a copyright claim, and that's Doom. It's interesting, I don't get any music from the actual device itself at the moment, which is weird. Still no audio. So we found a device that it doesn't work with. The NES Mini clearly has issues with it. Picture looks great though. Okay, so this clearly has some issues rendering. Let's try a NES game quickly. Same problem. And just to make sure that it's not something I'm doing, I'm going to grab the other HDMI lead I've got here and just plug that in as well. It's connected to the other capture card, and let's see what that does. Okay, now I'm going to switch you guys over to the other one. And that one is doing the exact same thing. So this is a device that doesn't work on you. Make sure there's nothing else we can change in display settings. It's just these. Some frames render, some don't. Audio does not render. How interesting. Now we can get audio. You just have to add a secondary audio source when you capture some things. In this case, I just called it HDMI microphone. I'm unmuting it now. I'm not running this through secondary display at all, so this is directly from the system itself, and I'm looking at OBS to actually play the game. So I want to see if there's any capture latency there. Let's see. Click. Yeah, there's a little bit. It's minor. You can actually still play like this. I wouldn't recommend playing Galaga like this, but if you're doing like an FPS or something, yeah, it works. I'm also just going to do the same thing just now with the PlayStation 3 to see if that solves it. What do you mean? So let's see if I can get my ship back with this latency. It will be difficult because he's flying together, so yeah, no. not happening today, but I'm happy with this, that this works. Okay, let's try something else. Let's try video rendering and seeing how it captures movies and that sort of stuff. What I've got here is Big Buck Bunny. It's made by Blender, and I won't get a copyright claim if I do play it, so it's absolutely perfect. Right, and after adding the actual extra audio device, I'm going to recapture the PS3 because the PS3 is now working perfectly the way it's supposed to be. I'm just going to switch you guys over to the correct screen. Should do it. Hit the power button. And let's test the audio out. So the one thing that's worth noting is you have to do this because for some reason PlayStation 3 believes that this sound card is 5.1 surround sound. So you have to go to audio output settings, go to HDMI, select manual input, and just make sure that linear is selected. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to push this up all the way to 192 kilohertz. I want to see if that works. Yes, it still works. I'm running Rebug, and it's worth noting on Rebug you cannot disable HDCP. HDCP on a retail machine is always. So I've got two games here. I've got God of War Collection. We did God of War earlier, and it's of course not 1080p, and it's not too good of a game to test with because you have to wait for the intro to finish. But let's try Jack and Dexter. Oh wow, we're getting some corruption here. That I think is due to the audio level being too high and it's running out of bandwidth. So let's just rectify that quickly. Sound settings. Put the game, yes please. So there are one or two little caveats with this card. Like any card, even if you get Elgato, you're going to find one or two little things you have to alter and change. HDMI, automatic. No, I want to manually select my settings, please. See, automatically thinks that we've got Dolby Digital 5.1. We most certainly do not. So if you just deselect that, it'll automatically default to 44 kilohertz and 48 kilohertz, which I know is definitely supported. So let's see if the game works. I'm still getting some corruption there. Could be a lot of things causing that. I don't want to delve in too deeply. It's still worth getting one of these. Let's do jack free. No, I do not have a 3D capable display. It'll be interesting to see if this can actually capture 3D. I don't think it can. Loading. Skippable cutscenes. Ah, there we go. Start. New game. Yeah, sure, why not? Empty slot. Unfortunately, just like God of War, this isn't a 1080p game. As you can see from the screen, it's about 720. Unfortunately, I won't be able to hear the audio because I don't have OBS set up for that, but I can always read the footage and see if it's working. I'll put a note down below if it works. What's interesting to mention, to note, is that the screen that I'm using at the moment does not have speakers at all. So that's why you have to add that secondary HDMI input. I've never played Chuck and Dexter the games. I've got own it, but I've never played the game itself, so I don't know if it's any decent or not. This looks smooth. As per our other tests, there's absolutely no latency that I can see when using the splitter. So what does the main message on the screen say? Hold owl and press jump back. Oh, I must have pressed down probably. Is it the right trigger? I think Focus exit has to be close to. Here we go. I think that's enough test footage. I'm not seeing any frame skips or anything weird.
The candidates have won the challenge.
That's right. We did. You haven't forgotten what I taught you, Jack.
Anyone can make a few measly jumps. Now let's see how you rate against the living. Readjust the matterformers. Prepare the arena for full combat.
Prepare the arena for full combat.
I just said that.
I know, I was just adding. You know, how you do the thing with the... Anyway, prepare the warriors.
You mean we have to fight against actual people? With actual weapons? Who actually want to hurt us?
Fine, bring them on.
All right, that's it. I want to be on his shoulder.
I think that about ends all of the testing. I'm just going to play the top of my phone using Mister on here to see how that works. And to show you that this device really doesn't care if your actual frame rate isn't perfect. And yeah, thank you guys. Cheers. Right, so the big question now is, should you get one of these? I mean, $1,000, and it does HDMI capture really good in my opinion. The other features like the OTG cable for Android support is amazing. I really like that. The color quality, looking back at the clips I captured, I'll see when I do the comparison between internal capture and the capture device how good it is, but just looking at the captured video clips, it looks phenomenal. But there are some cons. As you saw, not all devices are compatible. The SNES Mini had some corruption at the bottom. The PlayStation 3, when it started the intro sequence for Jack and Dexter, had some corruption. But I think that's how it renders. So the PS3 outputs that frame, maybe it gets a bit confused or whatever the case, because the next frame it's perfect again. It's like it's the keyframe that this doesn't detect properly. And even with all of those, the question is, does this compare better than the Elgato? I don't own an Elgato. I wish I did. I wish I had the money for an Elgato. But I don't think it will. Because Elgato can't do HDCP at all. And anything that's not 100% to HDMI spec, it just doesn't render. You can try to get like the Mister working with Elgato. It's a pain in the backside. You have to have special special settings and things for the output on the Mister. You have to drop frames basically every so often to make sure the sync is perfectly 60 or perfectly 25 or 30. It doesn't do anything in between. So the big question is, should you go for one of these? It's $1,000. I don't think you can go wrong. It's a third of the price of an Elgato. And you can actually get them. The Elgato is sold out everywhere in South Africa at the moment. You can't buy them. So that said, I hope you guys enjoyed my first in-depth review of a product, and I hope to do more of these. I've got another thing planned for this one. And I hope to do more. I just wish that I could get some sort of sponsorship or something done so that I can get these in to test, but it's never gonna happen. I tried with Banggood. I know with GearBest, there was one guy on another forum that was one of their things, and he said he'll talk to them and whatever, and sort of never materialized. The other thing you'll notice that the video quality isn't as good at the moment. That's just mainly because, well, I'm relying on sunlight when I had those settings done originally, and the sun has moved. So yeah, I'm not as bright. And I need to then reset it and figure that out. And this is going to be a thing of you have to calibrate it every time before you go live. So it's not an ideal setup. I want something I can just plug in and use, and that's good. But I think I've got that solution, and that solution we'll do next time. So yeah, if you like the video, please subscribe. There's affiliated links to the bottom of the page of this. I literally don't expect to receive anything back on that. It's not like I'm going to sell 1,000 of these and make any sort of affiliate money back, but if it's like $1 or $2, I can use it towards the next purchase. Everything I purchase from GearBest and those sites go back into the channel. And literally, I paid for these capture cards from the YouTube ad revenue that I made so far. Every cent goes back in the channel. In fact, I added my own money towards it because it wasn't enough. So, as always, guys, cheers. I hope you enjoyed, and until next time.